What is up, guys? It's Mason once again, and today we are going to be looking at some of my games. Actually, we'll be looking at all of my games from the just ended 13th President's Cup. All in all, I did not like how I performed, apart from round 1 and 2, which we will look at today. But before we get into the games, remember, if you haven't already, remember to subscribe to the channel. And you can also leave a like and comment. I have to see your comments and your suggestions and your tips, as they would really help me out. So let's get on to the round one. So on the tournament was played in 3 days, but we played one round on 3 rounds on day, 3 rounds on day three. And in my first round, I faced against my former teammate from the University of Ghana, Clinton from Evo. And currently he's like far better than me. He even represents Ghana at the Olympiad level. So he's very experienced and very skilled. But I was hoping to perform well. Like I wasn't thinking off the top of my head that okay, he's better than me, I'm going to lose. I actually wanted to do my best. So let's see how this game went. I'm playing as white here. So we have d4, d5, bishop f4, knight f6, e3, c5. And as you know, I've been preparing against these c5 lines. But here I transposed into a Jubava. Then there was a6, and then finally I went for the line I've always been thinking about. D takes c5. In case you are wondering the background, my preps, everything, you can check out my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/pen_mason, or even the live section of YouTube. I did do a live coverage of these games where I went through the background, what I was thinking, so on and so forth. This is more or less a summary. Yeah. So after d takes c5, my opponent plays knight c6. I go knight f3. He goes bishop g4, h3 takes, and then he plays e6. Now I play the move bishop. And the moment I play bishop to d3, I realize something. And what I realize is that my opponent has e5. And I'm like, oh boy, is this how I'm going to start my first round? Like, I'm literally just about to lose. But then a whole funny line flashes through my head, and I have a chance. So the moment my opponent plays e5, I start blitzing out those moves. And the reason why I blitz out those moves is for a mental victory. I wanted my opponent to think that this was prepared. So the moment I saw the line and he pushed e5, I went bishop g3, g5. He pushed e4, takes, and this is the line I saw. And I was so happy I saw that. Bishop takes, pawn takes, knight takes. And what do we have here? Well, as you can see from the engine and the eval bar, the position is quite equal. Now it says 0.2, but this is the thing. Whereby you are down an exchange, and though you make up for it with pawns in such a position, it's more or less equal, right? It's black may have an edge, but white is definitely not slouching in any way, shape, or form. And the advantage of this position are very clear. My opponent has, first of all, 3 pawn islands, 2 isolated pawns, 1 doubled isolated pawn. Like, my opponent's structure has been destroyed. King is stuck in the center. No matter where he tries to castle, he's going to face problems. So I'm in a very good position, right? My opponent brings the bishop in to defend, rook a to d1, or rook d1, sorry. And my opponent plays queen to c7, which I felt was inaccurate or a mistake. Not a mistake, but I felt he should have gone queen a5. But I can understand his frustration of my queen is going far away from the defense of their position. I can sort of understand this. Again, yes, it's not, this is not the best way to play it, but you can sort of understand where he's coming from, because it seems like your opponent can start something against you, but your queen seems to be far away from the defense of it. So queen c7, when he played this, I was quite happy. And I went for the captures. Now I'm up a pawn. So this position is actually now slightly better for white. My opponent plays rook to g8, creating possibilities of a counterattack. And here I start thinking, which you will realize in this tournament, thinking made me lose lots of my games. I'm not saying thinking is bad, but sometimes I overconsider things and I get scared by them, right? What was my immediate thought here? My immediate thought here was to castle. But then I started thinking, right? One of the things I was thinking about is if my opponent comes in here, I can't double the way I would want to double, right? Because the moment I play something like, let's say this, he's going to take, right? And then I feel like my opponent is now fine because I just have two major pieces, right? I just have two pieces on the board and the rest are pawns, and I feel like my opponent can find a way to counterattack or at least cement his position. Yes, obviously, I did miss the fact that there is this move, which is much better for me, right? But I just kept on getting worried about this move, one. And the second thing I was worried about was, even if I did castle, let's say my opponent does not play this move, rook d8, my opponent has this move, queen e5, and he can force off the trade of queens. And once again, this may be better for white, but again, with my endgame experience, so on and so forth, I wasn't so confident allowing this kind of position. Because my opponent can also still eventually trade, right? Sorry? Right? He can still eventually like trade, which is another thing I was considering. So I started thinking so much. And though castles is the best move, I played rook to d5. And rook to d5, in my head, solved the problems in a sense, right? Though at the end of the game, Clinton explained to me certain flaws in my decision making here. But the point of this, first of all, is to stop the obvious queen to e5, right? Now he can't trade off there. Maybe I can castle. Second thing is that I looked at the fact that if check, I don't have to play c3 anymore. Now I can simply bring my king here, simply because after queen takes, the pawn is defended diagonally by my queen, right? So this felt like good for me. But what the second thing I was really trying to fight against was this. And when he asked me about this move, I was like, oh, then I just play this move. Not realizing how bad it was, right? I was thinking I was going to create here, I would play maybe c6 or here, sorry. But you can see that there's a problem here. So you have to play c3. My opponent takes, and I was thinking, oh, wait, we can now threaten checkmates, which you can see does not like make any sense. It doesn't work. Your opponent has check here and all that kind of, right? So that's basically what I was thinking. But my thinking was flawed. Not to say this move is completely bad, but it misses the point. Fortunately for me, Clinton goes queen a5, which makes this move like a good move. Because like I said, after this, if my opponent takes, I'm simply going to double, right? But after this move, and my opponent plays rook to d8, I started thinking again. My original thought here, like when I calculated this position the first time, like the normal first set of calculation that you do, it was just play this move and be free. That was automatically what was in my head. Started thinking, I can put my opponent on the defensive. I was looking at takes, knight takes, queen comes in check, here, here. If my opponent moves up, it's bad. If he blocks here, I add my rook in and my opponent is in trouble. Right? But I simply forgot that the queen was defending as well. So I suddenly realized that, wait a second, because the queen is helping in the defense, my idea does not work. So I started thinking of ways of deflecting the queen. And the move that came into my mind was b4. And I was so happy to see b4. I was like, oh yes, b4. Queen takes. The queen has been moved away from the defense. So now I can go for my line with this. Knight jumps in. Check. King comes in here. Rook comes in. And I was feeling myself here. But what I missed was the most obvious move. Queen b5. And now I lose. At this point, all my advantage is gone. Don't forget why I was winning, but now my position falls apart and I lose my pawn advantage. In fact, I'm losing all the pawns there, right? So I have no more advantage in the game. I move my rook back. Any other thing doesn't work. If I come in this way, he wins the rook for free. I come in this way. I'm expecting him to play knight takes here, but of course he can't play that now. If he plays this now, he gets hit with checkmate, right? So I go back, then he brings his rook in, attacking my queen. And once again, the linear mindset enters again. Very simple moves are this. I can just simply play this and I'm fine. Maybe even this move, I don't even know. But maybe even this move. And I'm fine. Not fine as in winning, but at least I'm holding a bit before before like maybe my position collapses. But then I'm like, oh wait, I have a very good plan. Takes, and if the knight takes, I have queen comes in. I was thinking that yes, this is good for me. Yeah, well, my opponent just played queen to c4, defending against that square. And again, I'm still thinking about the knight coming in here. So I play this move, simply forgetting that. Yeah. Queen to c2, check, and I lose the game there. So why was I happy about this game? Though I said the tournament was bad, but I was happy about this game. Why was I happy about this game? Because of how I managed to turn a bad position into a decent one. Actually, at the end of the game, he asked me that did I prep this position against him? And I was like, nah, it was a blunder. Because I was playing very fast. If you would had the opportunity to ask him, I was playing very fast. It was after we got to this point that I started thinking. At this point, I stopped using instinct and I started over calculating and I started seeing ghosts. And that's what made me lose. Anyways, now we move on to the next game against Francis Akwanda. Now, Akwanda is also an Olympiad player for Ghana, and he also plays the Scandinavian defense just as I do. Now, coming into the game, I was thinking I would play e4 because, again, he plays the Scandinavian. And since I play the Scandinavian, I know some of the decent moves that white can make to put black in a very like precarious position. But what deterred me was on day one, I had a brief conversation with Akwanda on the Scandinavian, and we were discussing new lines in the Scandinavian with knight to c3, John Bartholomew and then Gotham's new courses. And he says he hasn't tried that yet because of, the obvious, you're cutting away your queen's escape square in case the bishop comes in here. So I was like, since I've had this conversation with him, if I played e4, why would he just accept it and enter into an obvious trap? So I changed my mind and still went for the exact same landing system. Though this time we didn't get c5. We got different lines here. And in this position after a6, I suddenly felt, wait, I do have something in this position. I went e4. Pawn takes, knight takes, knight takes, bishop takes. And I think white is better here. Now my opponent plays h6. And I was briefly thinking about this move, right? Because h6 felt too slow. I get the point. Yeah, maybe he's planning on castling. And if you castle, this move is going to be a nuisance. I do get that. But I thought there were other more important things he could have focused on because there's no way I can attack this at least now. Or maybe he knew that my position couldn't really force anything at the moment, which is why he played h6. Again, if let's say he played bishop here and I attempted taking, all right, this is just going to be bad because my opponent blocks me and I lose the bishop, right? So once he did that, once he did this, I just solidified my position. Originally, I was going to play this. There was something actually that deterred me from playing this exact move. I can't remember what it was. I don't know if it had anything to do with knight here, but there was something about c4 that I didn't like, which is why I didn't play it. So eventually, I just went c3. And what you notice is that I have a very solid position, and I'm more active than my opponent, especially in the area of like the bishops, right? So I'm feeling good here. And then my opponent, after bishop d7, castles, he plays knight back. And I'm like, bro, there's something off about this move. A backward knight move Is he trying to play c5? Disrupt my center? Is he trying to play bishop here to trade off my good bishop for his bad bishop? Is he trying to put his knight here? Is he trying to play f4? I was thinking, like, why would you make this move? Because it didn't seem to help my opponent. And the first thing that came to my mind is bishop takes. But unfortunately, I couldn't find a justification for it. I kept looking at this line, right? The engine was like, my opponent should play bishop to c6 here. But I was like, this was the line I was specifically looking at. Because here my opponent has a very active rook, right? He has a very active rook. And I'm like, why allow this? Right now, my pawns are also split. I don't see the advantage of this. But then the engine gives a very interesting line. Knight here. And the threat is coming here to fork. Right? So I was like, okay, so what if my opponent just decides that he wants to play rook to b8? Well, now the queen is trapped. Knight c4, the queen is trapped. So that was the idea. So my opponent would have to play, for example, this move, allowing, what do you call it, a4, which can either push the bishop back or something. And this position is just good for white. But I could not see it. I just couldn't find a justification for it. I think this move is very difficult to see. I don't know if Akonda would have seen it. But I was so convinced that he would definitely do this. Again, my bishop would have to come in here and then takes here. So I was so scared that I didn't want to complicate things. And I concluded that the best option my opponent can go for is to try and trade his bad bishop for my good bishop. And so I go this way. This also prevents the knight from coming in here as well. And I was right. He tries to trade off. I take. And here I thought he would take with his knight, but he takes with his pawn. And I think the reason is because he suspects that I can do this. That could be the case, or that he could get some play on my queen. Not knowing what to do here, there are so many places I could put my queen. I looked at queen here. I looked at queen here. And I looked at queen here. And I just couldn't tell which one was the best. Apparently, the best was queen to d3. Or to even play b3 in this position. But I played this because I wanted to keep pressure here. And I wanted to discourage this move as well. If you can sort of understand that. My opponent plays a5. Now I play b3. Rook a to b8. I centralize because I was thinking about moves of e5, making my opponent's position uncomfortable. Rook f to d8 makes me understand that he wants to be able to move his knight. No, not here, sorry. He wants to prevent, for example, c4. Then I decided to go for a trade of queens because I'm like, okay, my opponent has nothing. Then he plays this move, and I'm like, okay, he wants to move the knight. So what squares are good for the knight to move to here and here? I can stop one, which I think is much more problematic. So I play g4. This move, I would probably just take. He takes, maybe I have c4 or something here. I mean, I felt I was okay here. Right? He then plays g6. And here some training on the end game came into my mind. Normally, I wouldn't think about this in this specific position, but I was looking a little bit further into the future. And I was training with a friend, Philip Ameku, and he spoke about how the king's activity in the endgame is crucial. Now, there's something I know, but I only know it for example, I would only know this if, let's say, the bishops and the knights and one pair of rooks have been traded off, that my king needs to be in the center. But in this position, I was like, let me get my king into the center. So that if there are any major trades, my king is much more prepped to deal with the center. But in this position, my opponent shocked and scared me because I didn't see this in my calculation. I thought this move was just fine. He plays f5, takes, and it was in this position I actually realized his threat. My bishop was preventing the knight from coming in. I didn't want to play this move because it prevents my king from getting into the center. Though it's a good move, it's not bad. I just didn't like it. But then to also play this move would mean that my opponent is coming in and he's going to stress me out. Right? So that's what I saw, and I was like, how best can I deal with this? And I went bishop to d3. Reason being, Once the knight jumps in, I play bishop to c4. He can take, I come in, he goes back. I can trade off. And now you can see the activity of my king, right? He comes in with his king, attack his hanging pawn. He defends it. I'm about to form a battery on that square. He plays pawn push. I get my king in. I don't want the king to be able to infiltrate into the position. He brings his rook and I double. And in this position, something very funny happens. He asks me that if he pushes, what will I do? And I said that accept the draw and I'll tell you. Because I don't want to see something that is going to make me lose. Like if I said I would take and then I was wrong, I didn't want him to know, right? So I said he should accept the draw before I would tell him what I would do. Eventually, we repeated and then agreed to the draw. And I was very proud of this game, especially because of the realizing that my move of king up was actually a good move, despite the fact that my opponent had the knight here. It was actually still a good move. I was very proud of that because I was very worried about getting into an endgame against him. In fact, in this position, White is the one who seems to be playing for a win. Right? So I was very happy to have had this game against Hasford. To close off, we'll look at a very short game. While we're on 21 minutes, we'll look at a very short game. Now, this was the game for the third round. Was it a third round? Yeah, I think this was the game for the third round. Yeah, this was the game for the third round. I played against Karina Quarte, and she was a newbie. Throughout the tournament, when I saw her games usually ended very quickly, and she was mostly the one who was losing. So I realized it's her first time playing the tournament, so I literally just went aggressive. I didn't play principled. I mean, I played good chess, but I didn't play principled chess because I knew I would be able to win easy. It's not a good mindset to go in a game with, but I was very confirmed with this thought process based on the games I saw her play. So she went e4, I went d5. And because I played a Scandinavian especially, I knew that they wouldn't be able to handle it. Most beginners who play e4 expect e5. So other move and c5, other moves like d5 are very uncommon to them. She plays knight c3, d4. The knight comes in. I do a starter step, and she blunders already. Takes. And like, why would I do this? Targeting a free pawn, that doesn't make any sense. Yeah, I play very dangerous chess here. Actually, that's a very interesting thing here. After my opponent played this, I had this idea, and I realized that my opponent had a checkmate threat. Of course, I can deal with it, but the point is, if you take here and I take the queen, my opponent has checkmate. And I was like, wow, that's actually very interesting. Of course, I can just take and take here, right? But it's because I saw that I played this move instead of the knight jumping in first. She attacks, I take, refuse to trade the queens off, and I saw this guy, and I'm like, yeah, bishop to b4, c3, takes. Of course, giving the free bishop because this is. So that was a very like smooth, simple game. I was very happy with this game simply because I hadn't eaten during the day, and this was the second game of the round, and I needed time to get some food and get some rest. Because in the next video, you're going to see me play very bad chess, and that's my game against David Ameku. So guys, if you enjoyed this video, as always, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I will do the remainder of my games, after which I will do other special games that I want to cover from the tournament. So there's going to be a lot of analysis videos coming out. Please support them, check them out, and I'll see you guys in the next game. Have a rest of your day.